I'm Clementine Beckett, 32. I run a landscape architecture firm based in Denver. But if you'd seen me that night, you wouldn't have guessed any of that. And honestly, neither did they. It was supposed to be a simple dinner. Wesley, the man I had been seeing for a few months, invited me to meet his family. They're a little intense, he said, but they'll warm up to you. I didn't expect champagne and roses, but I also didn't expect the kind of welcome that makes you feel like you should have stayed home. From the moment I sat down at that table, I could feel the weight of their glances. His mother's smile was tight. His sister didn't bother pretending. Every question was a test disguised as small talk. So, do you work? Do you rent? Or, you're not from around our part of town, are you? They spoke with the kind of confidence only old money could breed. I wasn't insulted by their wealth. I've worked with clients far more powerful. What struck me was how casually they dismissed me, as though I had nothing to offer but a pretty face and an empty wallet. Then, when the check came and his mother dropped the line, "We all pay our way here, dear. I hope that's not a problem," I simply smiled. I handed my card to the waiter, and then he looked at me, paused, then bowed slightly and said loud enough for the whole table to hear, "Welcome back, Miss Beckett. Shall I have the chef bring your usual dessert?" Just like that, everything stopped. The invitation came 2 weeks after Wesley met my friends. We'd gone to a jazz night downtown. Nothing too extravagant, but he charmed everyone. He laughed at the right moments, asked thoughtful questions, and offered to split the check without a blink. That night, when we got back to his place, he kissed me goodnight and said, "You should meet my family soon. My mom's been asking." I didn't hear about it again until 10 days later when he texted last minute, "Hey, dinner with my family tomorrow? Just a small thing. You in?" It was so casual, it felt like an afterthought. Still, I said yes. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to understand where he came from. The next evening, I wore a white silk blouse and a pair of tailored navy trousers. Simple, clean, quiet. It wasn't about being flashy, it was about showing respect. Wesley picked me up and said I looked classy, but his tone was distracted. He spent most of the drive talking about the restaurant, someplace his family loved. Upscale French-American fusion. "My mom knows the owner," he added. "Just be yourself, okay?" That line stuck with me. Just be yourself. Like he was bracing for impact. We arrived early. The hostess greeted Wesley by name and led us to a long table near the windows. His mother was already seated, blonde bob, pearl earrings, phone face up beside her wine glass. She stood to air kiss him, then glanced at me. "You must be Clementine," she said. "We've heard a little." I smiled and offered my hand. "It's lovely to meet you." She didn't take it. Next to her was Wesley's sister, Blaire. Younger, sharper, eyes like she measured everything in carats. "So this is her," she said, sipping something clear over ice. "Cute." His uncle, Lawrence, arrived soon after. Retired surgeon, polished shoes, navy blazer. He greeted Wesley warmly, then turned to me with a curt nod, like I was the bartender. No one asked me a question, not about my work, not about my life, just glances, smiles that didn't reach their eyes, and that humming silence that follows people who think they've already figured you out. When Wesley excused himself to take a call outside, the table shifted. Blaire leaned towards me and said, "So, how did you two meet? He said something about a bookstore?" I nodded. "A small design bookstore, actually. We reached for the same architecture monograph." "Architecture," she echoed, amused. "Oh, I thought you were something else." Then to her mother, "Didn't she say she does landscaping or something?" I kept my voice steady. "Landscape architecture. I run a firm. We work on high-end resort properties." Blaire's brows rose like I'd told her I bred unicorns. "Oh, so like you plant trees?" "Sometimes," I said calmly, "but mostly I design the spaces people never forget." She blinked. Huh. The food hadn't even arrived, and I already knew exactly how the night was going to go.
Wesley came back. His mother asked if he'd remembered to confirm her wine order. She didn't ask me a thing. When he tried to include me in the conversation, something about a garden in Italy I'd consulted on, his mother waved it off. "Wesley, don't bore her. She's probably more interested in backyard koi ponds than Tuscan villas." He laughed nervously. I didn't. I looked at my napkin, then the window. The city lights were soft and blurred in the glass. The restaurant was warm, elegant. It could have been Wesley came back. His mother asked if he'd remembered to confirm her wine order. She didn't ask me a thing. When he tried to include me in the conversation, something about a garden in Italy I'd consulted on, his mother waved it off. Wesley, don't bore her. She's probably more interested in backyard koi ponds than Tuscan villas. He laughed nervously. I didn't. I looked at my napkin, then the window. The city lights were soft and blurred in the glass. The restaurant was warm, elegant. It could have been a lovely evening if I had been dining with strangers who knew nothing about me instead of people who chose to know less the moment I walked in. The waiter came to take our orders. Wesley's mother took control of the wine list. Blaire ordered steak tartare. I asked for the halibut. Wesley hesitated, then went with lamb. When the waiter stepped away, Blaire leaned in again. I'm always curious how people fall into things, like, did you always want to do garden stuff, or did you start off as an influencer, or... I met her gaze. I started off as someone who listened more than she spoke. Still am. That quieted her for about 40 seconds. By dessert, I had learned everything about Blaire's failed startup, her Pilates instructor's divorce, and their uncle's golf handicap. No one asked me another thing. They didn't need to. They'd already decided who I was. The meal unfolded like a play I hadn't auditioned for. Every gesture at that table seemed rehearsed, every comment carefully aimed. Wesley, who normally relaxed around me, now looked like he was walking a tightrope between two versions of himself, one that laughed at my jokes and one that laughed too hard at his mother's. When the appetizers arrived, Wesley's mother waved off the plate of duck rillettes. Oh no, I never touch starters. But you go ahead, Clementine. I'm sure you don't mind indulging. The implication hung there like smoke. Indulgence was for people with nothing to lose. The waiter poured wine without being asked, a $400 bottle if I had to guess. Blaire snapped a picture of the label, then whispered, "It's one of the last vintages before the vineyard burned down. We only drink this with family." Wesley tried to pivot. Clementine's got a sharp palate. She took me to a Japanese tasting course once. Japanese? His mother interrupted. Oh, darling, that's more trendy than timeless, isn't it? Then she laughed, soft and brittle. But I suppose we all go through phases. They were building a fence around themselves word by word, a lineage of polished silverware and generational wealth guarded by perfectly passive insults. I'd seen that fence before, at donor galas, at foundation dinners. I just hadn't expected to be on the outside of it. They began trading stories about vacations in Provence, sailing in the Keys, and their grandfather's estate that was more vineyard than house. Blaire bragged about knowing someone at Sotheby's. Wesley's uncle described a dinner in Zurich with a Michelin-starred chef as if he'd hosted it. Every name drop was a ladder rung they assumed I couldn't reach. I didn't interrupt. I didn't nod either. At one point, Wesley touched my hand beneath the table and murmured, "You okay?" I smiled without looking at him. I'm learning a lot. Then came the entree. The waiter placed my halibut in front of me, offered a quiet bon appetit, and moved on. He'd been polite, measured. Something about his posture felt familiar, but I brushed it off. I had more pressing discomforts, like Blaire asking, "So, do you live downtown or more like over the bridge?" I answered calmly, "Riverfront, near Commons Park." "Oh," she blinked. "That's surprisingly nice." Her tone did the rest. After that, the table turned to politics, her mother's favorite senator, the downfall of manners, and the exhausting noise of people who've never worked a day in their lives, all while the server refilled our glasses with practiced ease. Then came the bill. It landed gently, face down, in the center of the table. Wesley reached for it instinctively, but his mother placed 2 fingers on top and said, "No, sweetheart, we all pay our share in this family, don't we, Clementine?" Her voice was sweet, the kind of sweet that slices clean. Blaire grinned, delighted. Wesley looked horrified. I didn't flinch. I opened my clutch, took out my card, and set it calmly beside the check.
That's when the waiter returned. He saw the name on the card, paused, then he lifted his eyes to mine and smiled. Not the empty kind of service smile, but one of recognition. "Welcome back, Miss Beckett," he said, steady and clear. "Would you like the chef to prepare your usual dessert?" Silence. A full, uninterrupted silence. Blaire's mouth actually fell open. Wesley blinked. His mother stared at the waiter like he'd spoken in tongues. I glanced up. "Thank you, but not tonight." The waiter nodded. "Of course. It's always a pleasure having you with us." He left, and so did every assumption they'd made about me. The silence that followed was thick enough to chew. Wesley looked like he'd just watched someone flip the script of a play he thought he understood. Blaire sat rigid, wine glass half raised, mouth still slightly parted, as if waiting for someone to tell her what just happened. His mother, Genevieve, I finally remembered, straightened her spine so quickly it made her pearls jolt. Even Uncle Lawrence blinked as if recalibrating where exactly I now ranked in his internal social hierarchy. I didn't say anything. I didn't have to. The power of being underestimated is that when the mask slips, even a little, the shock does all the work for you. "Wait," Blaire finally said, trying to sound amused but landing somewhere between anxious and irritated. "You've been here before? Like, often?" I turned to her, tone neutral. "Several times. The garden terrace out back. I worked with the owner a few years ago to redesign the entire landscape. We kept it native but elegant. Most of the clients come through that patio, so we wanted it to feel like a retreat." "You designed this place?" Genevieve asked, her voice sharp with disbelief. "I designed the parts of it you probably like taking photos in," I replied, still polite. Wesley tried to laugh. "I didn't even know you worked on restaurants." "I don't usually," I said. "This one was special. They were one of our first commercial clients. Gave us a lot of creative freedom." The waiter returned with a box. "From the chef," he said. "He insisted you take home your favorite. On the house, of course." He set down a neatly packed container, bowed slightly, and left again. His movements were effortless, deferential, not to flaunt, but to honor. Genevieve's eyes lingered on the box as if it might explode. "Well," she said, clearing her throat, "I suppose you've been busy." I smiled. "I keep a low profile." Lawrence finally spoke up. "So, what exactly do you do, Clementine? You said landscape." "I own a firm," I said plainly. "We specialize in high-end resort properties, cultural spaces, and select private estates. My partner handles most of the client-side strategy. I focus on design, implementation, and environmental flow." Blaire blinked like I'd spoken in code. "And that's enough to get you a regular table here?" Genevieve asked, one brow rising. "Not really," I said. "What gets me a regular table here is helping triple their outdoor bookings and getting them featured in Bon Appetit's Design Edition." I didn't say it with ego, just fact. Wesley let out a breath. I think he meant it as a laugh. "You never told me any of this." "You never asked." The thing about people like Genevieve and Blaire is they're not used to being the last to know. They're used to walking into a room and having it shift around them. But in that moment, the room had shifted around me. I hadn't planned it. I hadn't manipulated it. I'd just shown up and let the truth do what it always does. Blaire recovered first. "I mean, it's great that you're successful," she said, voice forced. "But honestly, it's kind of weird you didn't mention any of this. Feels like, I don't know, a trick." "A trick?" I repeated softly. Genevieve chimed in, trying to regain her footing. "Well, you must admit it's a bit disorienting. You come to dinner, say nothing about your status, and then suddenly the staff is treating you like royalty. It's misleading." I looked at her evenly. "Is it? Or did you just assume what you wanted to see?" That shut her up. The thing is, I didn't enjoy watching them squirm. Not really. There was no satisfaction in humiliation. But there was clarity, finally, unmistakably, that I didn't belong at that table. Not because I wasn't enough, but because I was too much for what they could handle.
Wesley sat back, hands in his lap, eyes flicking between everyone. "I think we owe Clementine an apology. For a lot." Genevieve stood. "Excuse me," she said stiffly and headed toward the restroom. Blaire followed a beat later, muttering something under her breath. Wesley turned to me. "I didn't know they'd act like this. I'm sorry." I nodded.
I'm not surprised, but you are. He exhaled. I don't want this to ruin things between us. It didn't, I said. It just revealed what was already there. He didn't argue. He knew I was right. The silence hung so thick. Even the clink of silverware sounded too loud. Wesley didn't move. Neither did his family. I don't think they were capable of speech in that moment. The waiter's voice had cut through every false assumption, every half smile and polite dismissal they'd built around me like a fence. He hadn't said anything cruel. He didn't have to. His words had weight because they came with history, because they made it clear that I wasn't just someone. I was someone they should have known. "You've been here before?" Blaire asked, her voice thin, forced into civility. "Like, you're a regular?" "I worked on the garden terrace," I said calmly. "My firm redesigned it a few years ago. We collaborated with the owner and the chef on the full outdoor layout." Genevieve blinked. "You mean the space out back with the lights and the hanging vines?" I nodded. "That's mine." The waiter returned then, carrying a small plate with a delicate hazelnut mousse, rosemary shortbread at the base, a touch of sea salt on top. I hadn't ordered it. I didn't need to. "The chef insisted," he said softly, placing it before me. "He said this was always your favorite." Genevieve's fingers stiffened around her wineglass. Wesley stared at the dessert like it had personally betrayed him. Blaire looked me up and down. "So you're, like, actually successful?" I met her gaze. "I am." "And you just didn't say anything? You let us—" She stopped, realizing what she was about to admit. "Make assumptions?" I offered. "Yes, I let you." Wesley shifted uncomfortably. "Why didn't you tell me?" "You never asked." He opened his mouth, but no words came. He was starting to realize just how much that sentence said about both of us. Genevieve tried to recover. "Well, this is certainly enlightening. We weren't aware." I tilted my head. "That's the thing about awareness. It's usually a choice." Lawrence chuckled nervously. "Well, you fooled us. I mean that in the best way." I turned to him. "It wasn't a trick. I just didn't perform." Genevieve reached for the check, but it no longer mattered. The moment for power plays had passed. The balance of the table had already shifted. Wesley looked at me like he didn't quite recognize the woman across from him anymore. Or maybe he was seeing me clearly for the first time. "I didn't know any of this," he said almost quietly. "I know. That's why this doesn't work." He winced, just barely. "Can we talk alone?" I stood, folding my napkin. "Wesley, I'm not angry, but I am done." He looked stricken. "Just like that?" "Not just like that. You didn't defend me. You didn't even see me. Tonight just confirmed what you weren't ready to admit." Blaire looked like she wanted to interrupt, but thought better of it. Genevieve straightened her posture, putting on a final smile. "Well, I hope we haven't offended you beyond repair." "I wasn't offended," I said. "You revealed yourselves, and I'm grateful." Then I looked at the waiter, nodded my thanks, and picked up the boxed dessert he quietly handed over. Wesley called my name once as I walked away, but he didn't follow. He knew it was over. Outside, the night air felt honest in a way that room never did. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt steady, whole, because I'd never needed their approval, and now I didn't need their presence either. I stepped into the night with nothing but a small box of dessert and the quiet satisfaction of having said nothing loud, yet everything clear. There's something powerful about not needing to explain yourself, about letting people show you exactly who they are and choosing calmly to walk away. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I didn't even feel the urge to look back through the window to see their faces one last time. I already knew what I'd find. Confusion, discomfort, maybe even regret. But none of it meant for me, only for what they lost.
Wesley had once made me laugh. I believed he saw me, but I realized he only saw the parts that were easy, the parts that didn't ask too much of his world. The quiet woman, the polite date, the guest who didn't challenge the setting. But I was never meant to be a guest.
I've built things, real, rooted, living things that last longer than their opinions. And the next time I sit at a table, it will be one where I'm not the one being silently sized up. It will be a table I chose. And if someone ever tries to call me just anything again, just pretty, just polite, just lucky, I'll smile because I know better. And now, so do they.